This video is about dinosaurs. No, it's about these two juveniles running around Japan. Ayako from Cute Things from Japan and Yoshikawa from Yoshikawa Paper asked me to do a video about washi paper that's in the Wakami Torinoko notebooks. I made a video about both traditionally made washi paper and washi made at the Ishikawa paper mill. I'll put a link to that video in the show notes. Cute Things from Japan will be offering all of the Wakami notebooks on her website. When Ayako of Cute Things from Japan travels to find cool stationery for her store, she often puts out a pamphlet detailing her trip and giving some cultural background. We thought it'd be cool to kind of make a companion video. So the five of us, Mr. Sato, Mr. Yoshikawa, Ms. Quay, and Ms. Ayako, all went down to Echizen. The smart one's hiding behind the camera. Echizen is on the west coast of Honshu. Historically, it was more accessible to China than, say, Tokyo on the east coast. Since papermaking came from China, Echizen has over a 1,500-year history of washi. Echizen is a very slender valley in a rural area nestled in the mountains. You can see here it's surrounded by mountains, and its main natural resource is river water from the mountains, and that's incredibly important for papermaking. We left out of Haneda Airport, and of course, Quay had to get her stamps. Train stations, famous areas to visit, and airports have these little stamps that you can collect, and Quay collects them. We landed at Komatsu Airport, and yes, Quay got her stamps there too. Yoshikawa had printed out our tickets, and it was amazing. It was on washi paper. This is by far my most tactile and luxurious airplane ticket. The flight takes about an hour from Tokyo, and from there we drove south to Echizen. At the airport there was this large tourist map, and yes, there is a dinosaur museum in the area. We also saw the mascot for the Komatsu Airport. The Japanese have a mascot and a stuffed animal for just about everything. I'm not really sure what this mascot's all about. Echizen has a brand spanking new Shinkansen station, so you can just take the bullet train directly there. We first went to the Iwano paper mill, where they've been making handmade washi for over 150 years. The whole area was quiet with older homes. It all seemed like a scene out of Totoro. Here Ishikawa is explaining soaking the fibers to Quay and Ayako. Learning about the intricate process of making washi was the first step on the road to really falling in love with that paper. Their Kumohada paper is very sought after from woodblock, linoleum, and other printers. We left the Iwano mill to go to a restaurant called Daifuku. It's famous for their handmade soba, in particular Echizen soba. It was in this old-fashioned building, but before we could go in, Quay needed to take a picture of the post-drop box. She collects pictures of those too. We go into the restaurant through the noren, which is that black cloth hanging down, and down the narrow hallway through the sliding fusuma doors into the restaurant seating. The restaurant is very traditional with wood ceilings and sliding paper doors, and of course we'll be sitting on the floor. Soba is a noodle dish made out of buckwheat. Sometimes they're hot, but these are kind of room temperature, where you pour over a chilled soy sauce kind of broth on it. In other ways to eat it, you would take the noodles and then dip them into the sauce. But Echizen's sauce has Urushhi in it, which is grated daikon, or grated like giant radish. And another thing that makes it special is that the radish is kind of spicy, so it's kind of a spicy dish. Here's a close-up of the sauce with the grated radish in it. The lunch also came with miso soup up in the top there, and some pickles, and some green tea. Ayako's came with fried meat on top of rice, katsudon. Ishikawa confirmed my dish was the best. It was tempura soba. It was a traditional room with shoji doors. We left the soba restaurant Daifuku and went to Ishikawa's home and paper mill. This is the garden that separates his home from the factory. Ishikawa's family has been making paper since the Edo period. It's a long time. And they went to automated paper making in 1961. So Yoshikawa collaborated with Ishikawa to make modern washi paper that will be in Wakami Torinoko notebooks and also Stenai, which is a recycled washi paper notebook. Using a special recipe and automating it will help bring the price down and allow the paper to have some different qualities. Ishikawa's mill is in Goka, which means 5 villages. It's the heart of the paper making area. And literally right up the street is the Okamoto Otaki shrine. This is the Tori gate that leads to the shrine itself. The Okamoto and Otaki shrines are conjoined. It enshrines the only deity of paper in Japan. When you enter a shrine, you purify yourself with water at this kind of little washing station. You basically go up to this big stone sink with running water and then rinse your hands off with the paddles. Once you've purified yourself, then you can go up into the shrine area. This paper deity is called the Kawakami Gozen. She is officially recognized by the government printing office in the Ministry of Finance. This is kind of in recognition that Echizen paper was the first banknotes in Japan. This shrine is famous for having the most complicated roof of all shrines in Japan. It is complicated looking. It's basically 5 roofs. It's not 5 gables, but 5 actual different kinds of roofs. And it's covered with all kinds of intricate designs and animals like phoenixes and eagles. Here, Ayako and Kei are offering a prayer to the paper goddess. First, you throw in a little bit of money, and then you grab that really thick rope which is attached to a bell to wake up the goddess. You bow twice, and then you clap twice, and then you offer your prayer. The story behind the Kawakami Gozen is that the valley of Echizen didn't have a lot of land, and the farmers were very poor. The woman took pity on them and appeared and said, "You have very good, clear, clean mountain water. You should make paper." And then she proceeded to teach them how to make paper. The appreciative farmers asked her where she was from, and she said, "Oh, up the river there." And that's literally what the name means. Kawakami Gozen is the young lady from up the river. At that time, many Chinese were coming over into Japan and bringing their skills with them, and it's theorized that it was a Chinese woman that had showed up and taught them how to make paper. This area is in Goka, as I said earlier, which means 5 villages, and these 5 small villages all make paper. This is a mikoshi, a palanquin, or a portable Shinto shrine. This is how deities travel. So during the paper festival in the spring, the leader of one of the 5 villages takes charge, and him and his men carry the mikoshi from village to village, ostensibly with the paper goddess on the inside. At each village, the men in that village try to take the mikoshi away. So that poor leader of that village for that year has to go around to 4 other villages and fight off all the guys to bring back the mikoshi to the shrine. Ishikawa-san has had to do that, and as he said, it's very tiring. And here we're walking over to the building that houses the mikoshis. And Ishikawa is explaining the story of the Spring Paper Festival. Inside are several mikoshis, but my absolute favorite picture is this one. It's Ishikawa in front of the mikoshi that he and his men have to defend. We leave this beautiful, quiet place to go to Yanase's paper mill. All their washi is handmade, and like all the mills with handmade washi, it's really dark in their studio. Yanase Studio does a lot of interesting textures like this one right here. Here he has several very large pieces of paper with different texture. This blue one caught my eye and he allowed me to purchase it. They also use this technique called nagashi komi, where they put liquid pulp into this metal mold. This results in a kind of paper-on-paper artwork. Here's a little bit of the detail, and I'll link the video that they have on how they make this in the show notes. We walked back through this lovely village, but of course Quay had to do one more mailbox. Our meal that night was at Suya. When you enter, you take off your shoes and step up into the building and put on slippers. We went down a hallway with these paintings on washi and went to a tatami room. You don't wear slippers or shoes in tatami and you're just in your stockinged feet. This was kind of a preparation room where we had this little sweet appetizer of sweet beans and green tea while we were waiting for the actual building to be ready for our meal. The building we were waiting to go to was very old and historically accurate. It has been listed as a tangible cultural heritage of Japan. This is the building we were waiting to go to. Notice the thatched roof and the washi-covered shoji doors. There was a beautiful garden that separated the rooms we were waiting in and the actual little house we were going to. This is what it looked like in the beautiful pictures that Ayako took. This is what it actually looked like. It was dark and rainy, and we had to leave the little tatami room, go out onto a little ledge, put on these wooden getas, and walk through the rain in the dark. I was trying to film at the same time and was pretty sure I was going to break my neck. This is looking back at the room we were waiting in. But it was all so worth it. It was a charming little room in that tiny thatched house, and it was set up beautifully. This is about the level of light we had while we were dining. Of course, we were sitting on the floor, but we had these little legless chairs to lean back in. And the architecture was just stunning. It was completely traditional, and it had a little tokonoma, a little area where you hang your artwork. Our first course was already arranged and set out for us. This restaurant specializes in Ryokan Ryouri. A Ryokan is like a very fancy, high-end bed and breakfast, except for they serve you dinner. Their food very closely resembles kaiseki Ryouri, which is a very high-end multi-course meal where each dish and how it looks is very important. You rarely eat a Japanese meal without some sort of alcohol, and you always pour for the other guests. You don't pour for yourself. There's always a bit of raw fish, and nimono, which is a boiled dish. In kaiseki Ryouri, and in Japanese food in general, each dish has its own dish. Things aren't piled on a plate. Then we went on to sake in these clear glasses that was made by a relative of Ishikawa, and yakimono, our grilled dish. Each plate is decorated with either a flower or a leaf, and the presentation is very important. Underneath this lid is some pork, shimeji, and cabbage. And really, Quay should be an actor. She was always willing to ham it up for the camera for me. And dessert was beautifully presented with a mint on the ice cream and 2 halves of a strawberry. And of course, Ayako was busy taking pictures for her pamphlet. You really need to subscribe to her newsletters so that you can get that pamphlet, because she has a lot better pictures than I have and much better explanations. We ended with tea and of course our obligatory group picture. Thank you Ishikawa-san and Yoshikawa-san for the wonderful meal. We then went to our hotel. We stayed in a Ruto Inn, or Root Inn. It's a Japanese business hotel. This isn't a picture of our actual hotel, it's just one of their generic ones. Business hotels are pretty cool. They're inexpensive, they always come with breakfast, and they're all super tiny. I once had to stay in one for like 2 months, and by the end of that I was pretty ready to leave. So let me do a quick walkthrough of a business hotel. Your key card turns on the lights so we don't waste electricity, and there's always slippers, both disposable ones and regular ones, and you always have a shoehorn. They always come with twin beds. You pay by the person. There's a teeny tiny nightstand between the beds. There's a TV on a little dresser and a small table with a stool and an upholstered chair. The bathrooms are always one gigantic plastic built-in unit. You can kind of see how it slots into the wall there. And this sign tells you to keep the door shut so your steam doesn't set off the fire alarm. Your towels are up on a high shelf as there's no other place to put them. You get throwaway amenities like a toothbrush, toothpaste, comb, brush, Q-tips, and a razor and a blow dryer. And you get this weird little flat thing that when you add water turns into a sponge instead of a washcloth. You get the normal shampoo, body wash, and hand soap. And every faucet is built this way. You can swing the faucet to fill up the tub or swing the faucet to use over the sink. Water comes out of the faucet when you push down on the handle. When you push up on the handle, it activates the shower. And it's always a handheld shower in every bathroom. And then you control the temperature with the other knob. Everything is built compactly and efficiently. There is no closet, but there's several hangers that you can use and also a sprayer to refreshen your clothes. The nightstand has plug-ins and a light. The shelf below has a phone and a pad, and the shelf below that has a hot pot, cups, and tea. And the shelf below that has yukata, which is a light cotton kimono. The TV stand has a plug-in that's controlled with a switch, and then double doors that open up into a refrigerator. Small, smart, and efficient. You get a ticket for each day that you stay for breakfast, and you drop it in this basket. The cafeteria is spacious and bright. Good morning, Ayako. What are you eating? Let's check out what we have to eat. There's always chopsticks, and the sectioned plates are underneath the buffet. A recent addition I had not seen before was little kids' plates, bread, and a little toaster. And for some reason I cannot fathom, there's always cold fries for breakfast. And then my very favorite machine. This thing, I kid you not, plops out a pre-measured portion of hot, fresh rice. Push a button, bam, look, it's steaming. I need one of these for my house. So what did I get? A little salad, and of course some rice, and I wouldn't be in Japan if I didn't have cold fries. And then some tamagoyaki, the egg, a little bit of ham, a little bit of fish, a little bit of cooked spinach, and a couple of gyoza and sausage. We put our dirty dishes away and we're ready for a new day. Unlike the day before, today was a nice sunny day. We went back to Ishikawa's paper factory to test out the paper that was made the day before. You can watch that process on my washi paper video. In place of that, I'll tell you why Yoshikawa decided he wanted to make a modern washi paper. This is a Banzukehyou. Each new one is the current ranking of all the professional sumo athletes. They come out at every major tournament and everybody gets ranked. For 300 years, it was always printed on washi. But about 30 years ago, there was a big rivalry between two Japanese sumo wrestlers that were brothers, Takanohana and Wakanohana, and Akebono, an American from Waimanalo, Hawaii. Sumo just exploded. It got very popular, and it was really exciting to watch. And everybody wanted a Banzukehyou, and they couldn't print them fast enough. And so the Sumo Kyokai asked Yoshikawa's company to print it on paper where they could print it faster. They came up with a paper that kind of resembled washi that they could print out really fast. And of course, once that was done, it never went back to washi. So Ishikawa feels some sort of responsibility to promote washi. This Banzukehyou has Akebono, the Hawaiian, ranked in the highest position, Yokozuna. We really treasure it. Wei had tested the machine-made washi paper hot off the press. It was pretty impressive. She brought watercolors, water, ink, all kinds of fountain pens. It was a pretty thorough test. And again, she's always accommodating for my camera. Then we did the important stuff. We went to lunch. We went to Kamezo, another restaurant that has buckwheat soba noodles. It's incredibly popular because the buckwheat is grown there locally and the buckwheat flour is milled in-house. This is their specialty lunch, kakiage Urushhi soba. We were pretty practiced in pouring the Urushhi soba sauce over the top of the buckwheat noodles. It came with salt that you put on top of their kakiage, which is a tall, cylindrical, flaky, kind of fried thing with shrimp and scallops. It was delicious. After completely stuffing ourselves, we left to go to Takefu Knife Village. It's run by a cooperative of knife makers. Since I often go to the restaurant Supply Street in Tokyo, I didn't think I'd be that excited about it. But the building is just gorgeous. And of course, there were knives everywhere. And when I was looking around, Ishikawa walked up to me and goes, "Hey, you know you can pick up the knives." And sure enough, you just reach under the glass and handle the knives. Both of us thought that was pretty trusting. And around the corner in the same building, there's this kind of unusual knife art display thing. It looked pretty but vaguely threatening. They also have classes and people make knives there, and on that day some guys were sharpening some knives. Quay and I were huddling over in the corner up to no good. We were messing around with all these cool novelty things. There was this little eyeglasses thing, and then when you pull it out and push it together, it becomes scissors. I thought that was pretty cool. I felt like I really needed that. And then they had this little mini knife with a little cover. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this thing, but it is pretty cool. I did decide to get a real knife. It comes in this cool Polonia box. And that knife is really sharp. Just watch when I open up the box and I'm trying to unwrap it and take the paper off, and it just kind of cut right through it. It's called a petty knife, which is basically a paring knife, and it's made of Damascus steel. And yeah, it's really sharp. After knives, we went to Urushhi Gallery Kyuuemon. They operate out of an old Japanese home that they renovated. All the buildings in that area are traditional, and looking out of their second floor window, you can see the beautiful roof tiles on all the surrounding buildings. The company has been in business since 1910 and has been a supplier to the imperial household. Up here on the second floor has the most interesting displays, and you can get coffee and a small dessert all served on their lacquerware. And here's an excellent example of how the Japanese trade business cards. There is a fee for coffee and dessert, but it's really worth it because the tableware is just gorgeous. Everything you use is something that they do here at this studio. The coffee was interesting. It was soaked in our cup like a tea bag. But what was amazing about this whole setup is you could see the different kinds of lacquer. Some are really shiny, some are kind of more glowy looking, and there were some unusual colors too. I never tire of small things like this flower. I love that this red cup has a soft glow, but the saucer underneath has a shiny lacquer. And this is my first yellow urushi. Using that little die, all these little cups are part of a drinking game, and they all stack together. I do believe that Quay bought this, so She's a lot more fun than the rest of us. We talked about urushi, or lacquer, what's in this bowl, and one of the tips they gave us is how you can tell the difference between plastic and a lacquered bowl is the bottom part of the bowl is thicker because it cannot handle being turned for urushi if it's all skinny. This is his curing area. Lacquer is not dried, but instead it's cured. The humidity needs to be tightly controlled. And the cool thing, he has it on kind of a rotation thing that he's got connected up to a timer. They usually have an artist working on the second floor so you can observe them, and they also have classes. Here is Matsubara Sagiri-san doing carving on lacquered bowls. She uses sharp metal tools to kind of cut out the lacquer to make designs and pictures. This is a carved lacquer box. I plan on putting stationery on the inside. Of course, they have a huge array of different kinds of lacquered boxes. And the really cool thing is he has lacquered guitars and earphones. I was just cracking up. These are incredibly popular. A common thing that is lacquered is natsume. They're the little containers that you use to hold matcha, and there's all kinds of beautiful designs for them. Sometimes these can be a little more affordable. The beauty of this piece is that it's black, but you can see a little bit of the red urushi peeking out at the crease, and then when you open it, you see the design. This is quite common in Japanese art where you hide the art under something else. And I've never seen anything like this before. It's matte, light blue urushi. Now we get to the fun part, the fountain pens. Here's a close-up detail. There's a silver one on the left and a gold one on the right of the dragon pen. This is called chinking, where they carve the lacquer out and then fill the carved-in spaces with either silver or gold powder. Here she's explaining that she uses two types of gold, blue gold and red gold, to give different shading of the gold. They do this cool thing where they can etch a picture of your pet into the side of an urushi product. Their YouTube channel has a cool video on that, and I'll link that in the show notes. And now we're driving to the airport to go home, but Mr. Sato very kindly got us some dorayaki for the drive back. It's a traditional dessert where it's like two thin little pancakes around some sweet red beans. But now there's all kinds of fillings. You can get it with like custard or pudding on the inside. And this is kind of a representative picture of us smiling and eating. If you're interested in going to Echizen, at the Echizen Takefu station, there's an excellent information center. There's a real interest in Echizen lately because NHK, Japan's national TV station, has a drama out about Murasaki Shikibu. She wrote The Tale of Genji, which is sometimes called the first novel ever written. She spent part of her time in Echizen, and part of the show is centered here. Inside of the information center is a beautiful front desk that's always staffed with someone. I'm not sure if they always have someone that can speak other languages on staff all the time, but there are a lot of pamphlets and many of them are in different languages. They also have this cool setup where you can go from designated hotels to designated tourist spots for only 500 yen in a taxi. That's about $3.50. The hotels and tourist attractions are on this list in Japanese, but they do have an English translation here. The taxi drivers don't speak English, but you can point to the English one and it's also written in Japanese, so you can get around that way. You can't make any other stop and it's only to designated areas, but at 500 yen, that's a deal. And if you stop any other place en route, they'll just charge you the normal taxi rate. Hui has a sixth sense or something, but she managed to figure out whether or not there was a place that had stamps, and they do. And so Hui got her stamps from the Echizen Shinkansen station. And I'll leave you with one more clip just to show you how kooky these two are. I hope their kids get to see this.